So welcome to today's Customer Academy Live webcast, Generating Business Impact with Business Critical SharePoint Solutions. Your presenters today are Bill Bear, he's a Senior Product Marketing Manager in line of business with Microsoft, and Tim Aiken, he's a Senior Product Marketing Manager with Enterprise Search with Microsoft, and David Roscoe, he's the PMO Specialist with DoRun today. And with that, Bill, you now have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody, and good evening to some. Today's session, Business Critical SharePoint Solutions with Line of Business and Enterprise Search. I am Bill Bear. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager in our SharePoint product group, and I'm responsible for the management of our line of business content as related to Business Critical SharePoint. So with just under an hour left, we have a lot of content to cover, so I'll go ahead and begin with the agenda. Today we're going to walk through the value of what a business critical solution is, the business value inclusive of not only value to IT but also value to your users, what comprises a business critical SharePoint solution. We'll talk a little bit about some of the technologies that we leverage as part of our business critical SharePoint implementations, where our partners add value to the program and to implementations of such solutions. We'll also talk a little bit about trends in enterprise search and knowledge discovery scenarios, search-driven experiences, platform value, and then we'll also hear from DoRun, and we'll hear about one of our customer success stories. So we have a lot of content for you throughout the course of the next hour. Just to get to know each other a little bit, our first poll question is the location from which you are joining. And I'll give you just a moment to answer that, and then we'll move on. Great. Looks like we're getting a number of responses. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. So let's go ahead and talk about, very quickly, market trends. Why do we think about business critical SharePoint and business critical solutions as being so imperative to the industry? If we think about market trends, trends today are impacting the way that users work with information, and the expectation these users have is also changing. They want information relevant to their roles, available anytime and across any device. So as a couple of examples, if we think about looking at the next decade, the data explosion is expected with increases of up to 44 times their current levels. And then if you think about innovations in mobility and connectivity, they're leading upwards to 1 billion smartphones in the market by 2016, and over a third of which are going to be used in business settings. So even today, these numbers are astonishing, with 4.3 devices per adult. So as the cloud gains momentum, more enterprises are also looking at hybrid topologies to enable them to achieve a certain ROI on their existing investments while leveraging the benefits of cloud computing. And then what's compounding all of these trends is the fact that enterprises on average are maintaining 2.7 ERP systems and 48 discrete financial systems in each organization. And this is really where business critical SharePoint solutions can help, and this is really what we designed the program for overall. So we have one more question, and we're going to bombard you with questions early on in the presentation. In this question, you won't be able to use the polling application, so what we'd like you to do is just go ahead and select one of these numbers that matches the solutions that you have best. And it looks like we do have some results coming in. I'll give you just a moment to begin answering those. Please do select all that apply, and then put your answers directly into the Q&A tool that we have available for you as well. So if you open up the Q&A tool, you can just type number 1 SAP or number 4 IBM Cognos, and that will give us an accurate depiction of the type of line of business systems that you're running today. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So as we think about business critical SharePoint, we talked a little bit about the trends that are impacting the way that people work today and some of the trends that are changing within technology and how we envision business critical SharePoint in order to respond to those trends. Business critical SharePoint pulls together solutions SharePoint provides out of the box, such as line of business connectivity, enterprise search, Power BI, and then e-discovery, and it overlays them through integration and interoperability with the various LOB systems that you just responded to in the last poll question. The value of business critical SharePoint solutions They're designed to help our customers, you, maximize your existing investments through combining disparate technologies into connected systems. It's enabling users to make better decisions based on relevant and timely information while maintaining compliance around your core business processes, which ultimately leads to realized return on investment through process efficiencies, lower IT total cost of ownership, and with that also reduced risk. So as we double-click down into the customer value of a line of business solution, for customers, the business value of connected systems, it's a unified view into information that matters for your employees. It's improving their overall productivity, and it's also enabling better decisions through real-time visibility into information, which was once limited and isolated in nature. So in many cases, what we see is information is siloed, and there's multiple systems that are used to provide a view into information for users. Business-critical SharePoint solutions is aggregating this information and providing it through a unified user experience. So if we look at the example here to the right of this slide, we'll see a SharePoint site that brings together the power of SharePoint with the information of PeopleSoft. So SharePoint becomes more or less an abstraction layer for the underlying data that users would normally not have access to. But providing access to this information enables them to respond to opportunities more quickly, and it also enables IT to provide a solution that ties together information and blends it within a singular user interface, making that information available to users readily, quickly, and of course the users can respond in the same manner. And business-critical SharePoint solutions, they're for various industry challenges. So it's designed to span multiple verticals, whether you're in financial services, marketing. Each industry, we understand, has a variety of solutions to enable their business, and each industry is obviously subject to different corporate and regulatory compliance scenarios. So from a business-critical SharePoint solution, you shouldn't think of it as being limited to just healthcare or limited to just manufacturing. It spans multiple verticals and provides a unique opportunity to address the challenges of each. So with that said, we'd like to learn a little bit more about what industry you're in. And I'll give you just a couple of seconds to complete that slide as well. Great, and thank you very much for your responses. So from a measurable results perspective, we've talked a little bit about why we thought of the program, how we envision the program connecting systems through integration and interoperability, but one of the most important things are what are the measurable results that you can achieve from a business-critical SharePoint solution. So over the past year, business-critical SharePoint partners and customers have come together to lock on some of the main drivers of return on investment for business-critical SharePoint solutions. Through third-party research, we discovered that there's a particular flow to the value experienced about business-critical SharePoint. These are some of the common benefits from business, process, and IT perspectives. IT-related benefits are realized in getting to the solution, which then drives process impacts around time and productivity. Both of these then lead to the business impact, which is often what can be measured in value, dollars and cents. And these benefits that you see here are what customers are seeing within their organization when they take business-critical SharePoint approaches. And these are the benefits that you want to bring to your organization to help deliver the best possible experience for your customers and for your users. And we have a number of case studies that you can see here on this particular slide that can help you understand how various industries achieve that ROI through a business-critical SharePoint solution. So with that, what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to double-click now down into enterprise search. So line of business connectivity forms the foundation of a business-critical SharePoint solution, but a business-critical SharePoint solution is not complete without supplementing it with enterprise search. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jim and allow him to explain where enterprise search falls into the business-critical SharePoint process.
Thank you so much, Bill. Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Ike, and I work on the same team as Bill, and I focus on enterprise search. Now, if you move to the next slide, I'd like to briefly talk about where search really fits in the big picture when we think about business-critical SharePoint solutions. Now, if you look at SharePoint 2013, we have done quite a bit of investments to not just unify our search offerings that we provide, but also simplify the operation, maintenance, as well as build the extensibility capabilities. So search can now not just run great for SharePoint content, but can also surface content wherever that is within your organization. And that really falls nicely with some of the examples Bill has given as you integrate your SharePoint solution with other third-party solutions that you might have within your enterprise. Now, when we think of search, though, search is so unique on its own that we should really not think about search as 10 blue links. We know for a fact that when users are doing a search, they're not searching for the sake of searching. They're searching because they have a task to complete, or they're searching because they want to learn about something so they could act upon that. And that means that the search experience itself should not just be contextual, but should also be visual and actionable. And that's one of the key investments we have done in SharePoint to make sure that search not only runs great for SharePoint content, but runs great for any type of external or internal content, but it also is a gateway to complete a task, to be able to get to where you need to go. And the only way we could deliver on that promise is if we make search contextual and personal. The common scenario is, Bill and I, we work on different teams, different products, we work on different areas. Why should we see the same results over and over again? And as you think about your corporate, as you think about your organization, as you think about your employees, as you bring in line of business content into SharePoint, you also have to think about how can you make the most relevant content surface for those users. You probably don't want to overwhelm them with every single piece of content. You probably want to be able to provide them more of a personalized view that is relevant to the objectives they have, to the department they belong, to the tasks and the tools that they have access to. And that's some of the capabilities that we're very glad that we're able to provide with SharePoint. And that's one of the reasons why we believe that enterprise search is going to be a key pillar when we think about business-critical SharePoint solutions. Now, if I were to move to the next slide, I also would like to highlight that search is really not just limited to the search box. When we think of search in SharePoint 2013, it really spans across multiple workloads, whether that's the traditional productivity, the team side, the collaboration scenarios, or whether it's social communities, or being able to find documents that are located in your cloud storage, SkyDrive Pro, or even within portals on websites as search-driven publishing type of scenarios. But we also wanted to make sure that search not only works great for those type of content sources, but we could actually start to bring in external content as well. And we'll speak to a little bit of some of those scenarios as we go along. One of the key scenarios that is a big piece of the search puzzle, I would say, is we know that many of our customers are either evaluating or in the process of moving to the cloud, and this means that search has to be able to run and has to be able to provide and bridge the gap between where knowledge is stored to be able to make it very seamless for your information workers wherever that content is. That means that we now offer the same scalability and the same richness from an end-user perspective of search, whether you're in SharePoint Online, whether you're on-premises, or whether you're actually right in between and you're leveraging some of our hybrid investments that we have provided. So that's very promising from an end-user perspective, because now, as you start to move to the cloud, as you try to take advantage of hybrid capabilities, your users can now spend less time looking for stuff and be able to get to exactly what they need wherever they are within your organization. Now, I mentioned that search is outside of the search box, but I'd like to give one example as a search-driven experience. If I move to the next slide, you'll be able to see an interesting search experience. Now, your first gut feeling might be, hey, this looks like a portal. But actually, this is a search-driven experience that brings in content, whether they're in SharePoint or through line of business systems or through other types of content sources that might exist in your enterprise in a portal setting. This is part of some of the investments we have done and some of the capabilities that our partners are really building really great, rich experiences on as something that we like to call a search-driven experience. We power our portal, our intranet, extranet, even our website scenarios with search running in the background. from an end-user perspective, when a user comes to such a page or such a site, or even to a search experience on its own, they really don't need to know that there is a search running in the background. The benefit that we are driving these experiences with search, the benefit of a search-driven experience is the fact that you could start to personalize, the fact that you could now start to understand the user's context, based on which department you are, based on what you might be working on, based on the relationships you might have within the other people in your organization, as well as the access you have to content. We could now start to make these experiences very personal, very targeted. And that's where this really starts to shine. As these experiences become more personal, now as a user, you're spending less time, and as a corporation, as an organization, you're getting more ROI from your investments. And these are some of the scenarios that search can bring. So when you start thinking about a search deployment, when you start thinking about a business-critical SharePoint solution, start to also think about how search can help you connect that knowledge, that information, that data with your end users. And search will be one of those key ways of doing that. Now, if I were to move to the next slide, I'd like to give a little bit of overview of what the trends are in the search market today. There is this notion of unifying the search experience, not just from an experience point of view, but unifying the content that might live in your organization. Now, when we speak to customers who say, hey, Jem, we have some content in Lotus Notes, we have some content in SAP, we have some content in SQL, some content in file shares. How can I make sure that my users are not switching back and forth between different experiences as they try to find what they're looking for? How can I make sure that they find the information they need within the context of the application that they're working on? And search is able to bring those content sources as part of connecting to those content sources, indexing that content, and providing a unified single pane, single screen where your users can search for exactly what they need, wherever that content is. This is great not just for providing ability for your users to find content wherever they exist, but it's also great when you start to migrate from one line of business solution to another line of business solution. This could be, you might be, for instance, one example, you might be using Lotus Notes, but you're migrating to SharePoint 2013. And you might find yourself, well, do I migrate all of my existing old content to SharePoint? Or can I just keep my old content there and start to release my new workloads in SharePoint? But how can I make sure my users get access to that old content? And search comes into play very effectively in these type of scenarios. Another trend that we're seeing, and I mentioned briefly in my previous slide, was hybrid is really a stepping stone to the cloud. And we know that some customers will take advantage of hybrid. Some customers will go to cloud right away. But it's a flexibility that you have that gives you peace of mind, that allows you to go to the cloud on your own terms. And search is one of those key capabilities that provides that type of capability. Now, when we think of hybrid, it's not necessarily just hybrid to the cloud. You might have different data centers. You might have a data center in the U.S. You might have a data center in Europe, and you don't want to replicate content between these two different farms. And hybrid search can also apply not just from on-prem to cloud, but from one farm to another farm that might exist on on-prem or even in a VM that's running in the cloud as well. So you do have that type of capability, and our partners who are very experienced, as you can see here on the slide, we have listed some of our significant search partners, really provide these type of implementation and extensibility capabilities for you to reach some of those goals. Another interesting trend that's happening in the enterprise search market is many of our customers are actually adopting enterprise social. And some of you might already be, getting your hands dirty with it. Some of you might already be using one flavor of an enterprise social. But what's happening from an information architecture and information discovery point of view is now with enterprise social, the amount of knowledge that's created is signified. It's definitely increasing in size. But the challenge is not the size. The challenge is not the volume. The challenge is social generates a different kind of content, a different kind of knowledge, which is harder for users to discover compared to a traditional document or compared to a traditional line of business data that might be coming from a different system. And that's where search really starts to help out. And that's where you'll see us invest, and we have already done some investments when you start to deploy social for you to be able to extract more value, as well as make it a little easier for your users to discover the content, the connections, the social connections they need within those different tools that you might be deploying. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have been working closely with many of our partners here, and our partners specialize from different areas, whether it's from content ingestion, whether it's from optimizing experiences, building search-driven experiences, or whether it's from taxonomy management, information architecture, and making sure that search relevancy is up to par and is perfect for the task at hand. Now, saying that, the great thing about search is it applies for all industry verticals. Whatever you're working on, whatever content that you're working on, you will always need search. And speaking of industry verticals, Bill gave some really great examples of some of the customers and some of the business-critical solutions in different industries. But we would like to give another example by handing it over to David from Doran, who will walk through us some of the solutions that his team has taken advantage of and the value that they have received. David, it's yours.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody. This is David Roscoe from the Doran Company. And before I jump into kind of our story, I'd like to give you just a brief background for context about who we are. From the Doran Company, we've been operating in Missouri for over 150 years. We'll be celebrating our 150th anniversary actually next year, 2014. We are a global leader in the lead industry. You're probably familiar with our products indirectly. Your car, any major battery that's most likely convenience you, whether it's your car would be the most obvious example, but also battery storage that back up hospitals, data centers, submarines, etc. We are the Western Hemisphere's largest integrated lead producer. We actually operate in the second largest lead mining district in the world, and we have one of the world's largest single-site secondary smelters. So we do the entire life cycle of lead from mining to smelting to manufacturing to recycling. So we produce lead, copper, and zinc concentrates, and also finished lead with 60 different alloys. And then actually 70% of the U.S. primary lead supply actually comes from our mines in southeast Missouri, which is an amazing operation of over 30 miles connected underground of room and pillar type mining. Just to give you a little context also of where we're located, you can see that our main operations are in Missouri, but we also have a mining district. You can see with the blue dots, those represent our mines in southeast Missouri. We also have a primary smelting division within that area, but we also have fabricated products in Arizona and Vancouver. Now, we're not a large company by any means, so our challenges are probably fairly common to small and medium enterprises. And in our situation, we have very paper-based processes generally throughout the company. We're usually a laggard in technology, and so when you looked at our funding process, it was fairly complex, but it was still paper-based. So any capital project over $10,000 actually required a approval process, which would go through up to a dozen approvers. And this approval process for what we called a authorization for expenditure form, you had to justify it not only through the rationale and the justification for the project, but you also had to justify it economically. So that included calculations for NPV, ROI, which would also factor in commodity prices, and et cetera. So as this form would evolve, the challenge would be that we would make changes as a project management office to improve the process, but inherently, since it was paper-based, there would be old forms lying around. People would use previous copies. The commodity prices wouldn't be updated, or every year as we updated the commodity prices, they'd be using an old version. So there are always multiple copies of the spreadsheet lying around. Often people wouldn't have the latest copy. The other challenge we had is in a paper-based process, approvers throughout the process would ask for changes to be made. People at different levels would make changes to that form, and then the requester would actually may receive questions from the CEO or the board, and they wouldn't even be aware of all the changes that had been made over time. Another significant challenge for us was the approval process. So if the form, if the request had changed enough over time, it would actually require signatures. So we'd have to send it back to the requester, and the approval process would start all over again. Signatures would have to be added, all paper-based, scanning copies. As you can see from our operations, even though some are in the same vicinity, they're spread out over 40 miles. So it wasn't always practical to go around getting signatures. It always required lots of scanning, lots of wasted time. And these were from some of our key project managers and stakeholders who are spending a lot of non-value-added time throughout this process. And then ultimately, just from a project portfolio perspective, we really didn't have a transparency into the process. Where did the form lie? What projects had been approved? What was the status of the projects that had been approved? What departments were involved? There was just a lot of lack of transparency. It wasn't easy to really have a grasp of the project portfolio. So those were the main challenges that we faced at Doe Run. And we engaged Innovative E as our business partner. And they really helped us, document our requirements, our current processes, and to understand how we could improve. And as a PMO, we'd improved the process manually over years, but really we'd hit our limitations as far as what we could do with a paper-based process. So the solution that we came up with Innovative E as our partner, really met our needs in two ways, because it automated the processes that could be done electronically, but then it also gave us the flexibility to use our business applications, such as that Excel spreadsheet that calculated all our economic returns and had baked in commodity prices and recovery curves and all the complications of in a commodity-based business how we calculate our returns. So it made sense for us to automate where we could on the SharePoint site with using InfoPath for forms, and also leveraging Nintex as a workflow process to automate the approvals, and then also being able to leverage the business application to interface with Excel that allowed us to make changes, to make adjustments, but still being able to import that data into the automated process. Another key thing that really that solution did for us was it gave us that portfolio lookup. So we had all of our information from projects rolled up at a portfolio level so that anybody in the business could really understand what was in the pipeline at any given point, what departments were involved in our entire scope of our portfolio. So I'm going to show you a few kind of screenshots to give you an idea of what that looks like for us. So the way we designed our system was previously we had used SharePoint for project sites and document repository, etc. But what this allowed us to do was when we create a project, not only would that kick off the approval process using our AFE form, but it also created a SharePoint site. So it wasn't just a approval process for a project, it also acted as a continuation of the project all within a single site. So in this example here, we have the opportunity to create a new project, or the system is designed where we can even copy from an existing project. So maybe we have projects that are requested every year, and we can use a previous template with that historical information to make some few minor modifications and to help really streamline the process. If you notice at the bottom, there's that economic analysis type. This is where we had the opportunity to leverage those Excel templates as a business application depending on what type of project. So it allowed us as the business and the PMO without any real IT support that we could design templates that will pull key data into the AFE form. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. So this was the initial creation pane. So once the project is created, it creates not only the project site, which you can see here, and this is what we use from the project management office for our projects to basically track their status so they can manage not only to their project team, but to sponsors and various other stakeholders. And the nice thing here, as you see under that Actions Edit AFE form, as they build their AFE, as they build their form out, this data is linked to their project site. So the project site now has the key information from that approval process. So no longer do we have to ask IT to create a project site. It's all part of the automated process. And the user is really leveraging the approval process to populate their site. So there's no more copying and pasting like we used to do. So the requester has an opportunity to fill out this AFE form, and like I mentioned before, that link to the project site to dump the key information. And the AFE form here is just really an approval process. So this is an info path form that we used to have all Excel based, and it allows the user to justify their project, such things as the project scope, what are the key performance indicators of the project, milestones, risks, etc. And then we also have, within this view, you have the opportunity to, as the approvers make their approvals, we have a cover sheet that has the signatures, which really matched our previous paper-based process. So we were able to automate, but while also giving us the original look and feel of our former forms and being able to meet our requirements. So the next shot I'm going to show you is, so like I mentioned before, we had a fairly advanced Excel spreadsheet that had calculations based on commodity prices, recovery curves, grades, cost per ton type metrics. So that would have been fairly difficult to build into SharePoint itself, but we could leverage Excel and really link the key data points from those calculations. So we leveraged Excel to create the calculations, but we really just pulled in the data that we cared about. So in this example, these cells are just linking back to those calculations, and we're able to sync the payback period, the NPV, the IR, etc. And we sync that project information to the info path form using this business application. We also have a macro built in to update the commodity price from a SharePoint list. So this solution really gave us the flexibility to keep our current processes, the ones that made sense, the ones that if they made changes over time, we wouldn't require IT support. We could do that as a PMO. The final shot I just want to give you a look of is just a brief dashboard of the project portfolio. And like I mentioned before, this gave us visibility into what projects were in the pipeline. It also allowed us to filter by the AFE status, so we could see at any given point how many AFEs are out there, how many are in progress. We could also check the project status, add health indicators, so we could really, for the first time, see our entire portfolio and have a glance at what resources are allocated, what the total portfolio budget, how much the current spend is, and really this is just a chance for all the different stakeholders to have their own view, and they can customize these dashboards to meet their needs. When you look at the overall benefits for us, you can see the financial impact there, and really that's low ball in the sense that it's only that return and payback is really only showing the time savings, the kind of soft savings. So that's only calculating the time saved from the various people through the approval process, to the people requesting funds. And so when you look at the potential impact to having an engaged business that can see the project portfolio, and also from maybe their departmental standpoint to have engaged managers to see really where the project stands, to have project sites that now show transparency of the status of the project, the ROI case becomes much greater. And as I mentioned before, the benefits that we saw, you really have a more efficient process. You've gotten rid of all those floating AFE copies, the ones that were old. We got rid of the miscommunication about how the AFE had changed over time and the requester didn't know about it. It's just really, it's given us the ability to streamline a process, because in our environment, every day delay of an approval of a project could be quite significant as far as the impact to the business. And it's also really it's reduced that turnaround. So in our mining business, we have critical environmental projects that have hard dates that need to be met, and if we can have a more efficient, more productive turnaround for project funding, that means a lot to us. And the final comment I just wanted to make was that using SharePoint has really leveraged our ability to not only automate paper-based inefficient processes, but it's really acted as a pilot for other departments that are now interested in solutions that could leverage these same type of capabilities. So whether it's a workflow automation, whether it's having a portfolio view of all their projects for a specific department, it's really started to engage the business about how they can really transform and automate and improve their specific processes related to them. So with that, I'll give it back to Bill and his team if there aren't any specific questions.
Great. That's actually a fantastic case study that shows the value of what business critical SharePoint can bring to an organization. So in many cases, many organizations already have SharePoint in place, and they're leveraging it for one or more of its traditional purposes. Perhaps it's enterprise content management. Perhaps it's leveraging the core collaboration facilities that are built into the product, or business intelligence capabilities. And what business critical SharePoint does is it actually takes SharePoint outside of those traditional silos, and effectively it becomes that abstraction layer for a bunch of underlying data sources, and it becomes that core piece for aggregation. SharePoint becomes a proxy for information that your users can have access to, and that they generally need access to, but it's usually dispersed across a bunch of different systems within an organization, and each system has its own unique permissioning model, or perhaps each system has its own unique user interface. And by leveraging SharePoint in these solutions, what it does is it brings that information forward to the users by virtue of line of business connectivity and enterprise search, but it also provides a singular user interface through which individuals can actually work with that information. So over the course of the past 45 minutes or so, we've shared some of the examples of where business critical SharePoint can add value to your business. And business critical SharePoint has developed a rich ecosystem that enables you to find the partners necessary to implement solutions that are based on enterprise search or even line of business connectivity. So we have developed a rich partner ecosystem to help you design solutions that are based on SharePoint and underlying data systems. So from a recommendations perspective, or what we call our call to action, we definitely encourage you to learn more about business critical SharePoint. Ask your partner for proof of concept. Or if you don't have a partner, you can locate a business critical SharePoint partner online, and you can also learn more about how business critical SharePoint can accelerate your business. And there's a URL there on the slide below that you can use to access case studies. You can also view videos inclusive of ROI, white papers. You can also find partners and learn more about the program and the benefits that the program can bring to you. So with that said, we have approximately 10 minutes remaining in the presentation. We'd definitely like to use this time to enable you to ask any questions that you may have through the Q&A pane. Jim and myself will do the best that we can to answer as many questions as possible in the remaining time. But with that said, I definitely want to thank all of the attendees for joining today. An hour is a bit short to try to share all of the benefits of business critical SharePoint, but it is an opportunity for us to provide some insight into what these solutions are and how they can benefit your business. So again, from us here at Microsoft, thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder to ask the presenters questions today. Just click the Q&A tool at the top of your screen, type in your question, and click Ask. And while you are typing in those questions for the presenters, I do just want to draw your attention to the slide viewing area. In just a moment, you should see a login screen pop up there, and that is for our survey about today's session. So we have enabled the survey for this webcast. We hope that you found today's information helpful and that you enjoyed today's webcast or have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event. Please let us know by completing our survey today. The survey scores are on a scale of 5 to 1, with 5 being the highest score possible. So we'd love it before you log out today to just go ahead and take a moment to provide us with your feedback prior to logging out, and be sure to click that Submit button prior to exiting.
There is one question regarding how did you measure the impact of ROI through leveraging SharePoint. We did a white paper. We did a white paper, and then we had an agency talking to the customers. Excuse me. So, and basically, the customers were explaining how the SharePoint solutions have accelerated their business processes, how it increased their productivity, what percentage, how many dollars they saved. So you can read that white paper on the customer-facing business-critical SharePoint website. And regarding the other question from Ross, we need to follow up offline. We will be talking to other SharePoint experts and follow up with you later. Looking at the questions, and we might have to follow up with some of them. We're going to post the answers in an FAQ afterwards with the recording.
Yeah, so Frank had a good question. I'm reading it out loud for the audience. Is Business Critical SharePoint a separate module product or we just lost the question there. If you want to use up and down arrows, maybe.
Yes.
Yes. Product, is it a separate module product, or is it just a technology, is it just leveraging the capabilities resident in SharePoint to create business-critical applications? Yes, it is not a separate modular product. It is the ability to be able to take advantage of our partner ecosystem to drive more value from your existing experiences and connect with other business-critical applications. Absolutely, yes. Any other questions?
And one of the things, I just wanted to follow on with what Jem just explained. So business-critical SharePoint isn't a new capability or a capability of SharePoint. More than what it is it's leveraging the existing capabilities that our product provides and leveraging those capabilities in unique ways that weren't traditionally implemented. So, for example, you can think about a technology that we've incorporated into SharePoint, which started in our Office Server 2007 offering, which was what we called the Business Data Catalog, which has evolved into what we call Business Connectivity Services. And effectively what that functionality does is it enables an organization with SharePoint deployed to interoperate with a variety of line of business systems, either through .NET connectivity methods or through out-of-the-box what we call content type methods, so which is effectively attaching SharePoint to, say, SQL Server, which is one of the most common implementations. But what most people didn't realize is we've also developed a rich set of APIs, or provide a rich set of APIs that correspond with business connectivity services to enable .NET connectivity. So, for example, SharePoint, through business connectivity services, can interoperate with a variety of systems through our open API systems. So effectively, you could connect it to PeopleSoft, to JD Edwards, to Cognos, to a number of different line of business systems, regardless of what they are. And then in our most recent release of SharePoint, we've embraced the Open Data Protocol, or OData, for use with business connectivity. So now SharePoint can become an OData consumer. For many years, it was an OData provider. So what that means is you can actually, if your line of business system is an OData producer, SharePoint can easily consume the information that's provided by that line of business system. And even if it's not an OData producer, what we have is we have APIs to enable you or our partners to provide for you what we call an OData service head, which is effectively a set of web services that act as a proxy between SharePoint and that line of business system that isn't an OData producer. So there's many different ways to bring information into SharePoint. Enterprise search, as Jem explained throughout the course of his section within this webcast, really did a good job of explaining how search is capable of reaching beyond that silo, which is SharePoint, even though it's a facet of SharePoint, and touching a number of different systems and bringing all that information into one unique result set. So at the end of the day, Business Critical SharePoint is really, what we've done is we've enabled our partners to leverage the solutions that we provide out of the box in a new, unique, and compelling way to add business value to organizations who have these disparate line of business systems.
Thank you. And Vernee, we are handing the word back to you to wrap up. We will be answering the other questions via the FAQ.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that does conclude today's Academy Live session. Materials from today will be sent to you. You'll get a follow-up email, and I'll have the link to the recording and to where the slide deck is posted. We'd like to thank our presenters today for presenting, and we also like to thank you for joining. But with that, you may now disconnect from this call.